When she took Kubuni, you go to the Futulma for taking music. I forgot me fight. Mahiru, the Bunum Materu Naba, Mahiru Naba, Mahiru Naba. Prophet Neblava La Musa, more than a big dog on the truth teller. The chosen one, the Messiah. It's in a basai lemukenaba. Masi, otobile banabilegenaba. It's in a basai lemukenaba. Dikizi omuti defense. Amerita bia no ifes, Amerita bia no ifes. Anya kisi yomti yamfes, kisi yomti ifes. Anya dile maheru shinyef, Amerita bia no inana botela, inana bao, tofunu matero naba, maheru naba. Someone the Messiah. He is the chosen one and the Messiah. He's the light and the way, the wisdom of our days, the healer, the preacher, the truth teller. Bangati to gununge, listen up a second, what you're before sister. Someone the Messiah. Listen up a second, what you're before sister. Listen up a second, what you're before sister.
Sponsor a child from the Dogon villages today. They are the future healers, leaders and preservers of Kemetic traditions. Just like Prophet Nebnaba, these children of the Earth Center and our network of healers are being educated in local schools in addition to their indigenous cultural practices and traditions. This comprehensive education both positions them to inherit the work of their forefathers and mothers and continues bridging the gap between traditional and modern societies. So go ahead, support, find out more about our campaigns and donate by going to www.theearthcenter.org. Thank you.
Ujai, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show, and welcome once again. I'm your host, Nehipsa Nesebik, fourth generation London, UK, and alongside me is
Ujai, Metepu.
Metepu generation Nave.
Oh goodness, Wimshire, the Wimshire generation 7 generation at London, the London Temple.
Okay, then do I send? Yeah, we'd just like to greet you all today. And first we would like to say acknowledge the divine world. And today is actually our divine holy day. And it just happened to be on today. And today, the divine holy day is the day where we do, well, our Zemzem is open up to the general public. And it's a communal thing. And it's the day when we honor the divine world. And today basically is energetically more strongest day to greet our ancestors. That's by the sidereal calendar. And so this month it's governed by the goddess Mahata. This is the month of, well, today is actually the 9th day of Penit. And as I said, it's governed by the goddess Mahata, and she is the goddess of harmony, justice, truth, and moral integrity. And Mahata is the one that actually takes the new souls to the judgment hall where Ra and Wusa would judge them. So that's the part she plays in leading them through, really, and everything after that is decided whether or not they go through. So we also want to acknowledge the ancestors. That's the world of the dead. Ancestors are the one, really, right, that are the pathway, the gateway between the physical and the spiritual dimension. And without our ancestors, we'd be lost. There are many things in our lives, really, in many directions we would like to take in our lives, that they're constantly working on us, even when we don't realize that it's for our own good. Some of us are very stubborn, like myself. So our ancestors are having to be doing a really lot of work, really, right, trying to get us on track, really. And that's the part that they play in our life. And as we say, on Ancestral Day, we make offerings to them, because we don't just become ancestors like that. When someone died, we're known as dead relatives. And the offerings that we make, that we present to them on Ancestral Holy Day, that also is an exchange of energy, and that helps them to assist them on their journey to make it to where they need to get to. And in return, when we make our prayers and things like that, they would also assist us, really, on our journey through life, So we just say dua for the divine role and the ancestors. We also want to acknowledge Prophet Nebnaba, the Musa Moran Denibig, Kemetic Dogon High Priest and Ela, and they can trace their lineage back to the Nile Valley civilization and to the heritage of the Nabethians of Petra. And the Nabot dynasty is actually the bloodline. They're actually one of the bloodlines that migrated across the Sahara Desert to resettled on the west coast of Africa there, in places like Benin, Togo, Ghana, Burkina Faso, and those areas. And that was the place where they resided, really, right, in secret, trying to preserve the knowledge, right, that that invaders came to take away. And obviously they got certain things, but they didn't get everything. And this is how important that these people, these indigenous people, are, as simple as they might be, again, they are the gateways on the spiritual realm as to where we reach. There is that saying, there's a song, Dennis Brown sings, what about the half that's never been told? And then we hear about what they would call like the mystery system. Well, these are the people who have that half that's never been told, and they are the ones that the great scholars of so-called Western world, your Pythagoras and people like that. They actually went to the mystery system, to the mystery school, only for a short time, doing their 15 or 20 year studies, and come back believing really right that they know it all. And I think in that culture, for someone to deem themselves to be educated, they would probably have to do 50 years. So there was a lot more that they didn't know that they could have known, really. And so when we talk about when the invaders came in, they saw a spiritual base there, really, right, that was so profound. It was very high in spirituality, had a strong culture, value system was there, and they had initiation programs basically where the knowledge was passed down, and this is how the knowledge was kept. Now, in order for them to assert themselves, they had to destroy you. They had to destroy everything was there and make you believe like you was nothing. And we can see this being played out today in today's society, where as diasporas from the continent, our people them seems to be lost, and they've assimilated into everything else outside of themselves, and expect to be fitted in, and we become despondent, in a lot of ways, giving up on ourselves. But that's only because we're denying ourselves and what is ours. And so Master Naba, he basically, from a young age, he went to colonial school. He also did initiation programs, and he did both the traditional and spiritual initiation and education. And as he grew, he also went to the university in Kenya. So he was well versed in both traditional and colonial education. He got to the level where he excelled past his masters, past his teachers, and he actually became a master in Omtam science. And that's the science of reading the energy, the dialogue of energy, the earth energy. And through that, you're able to kind of to tell the story of what's happening yesterday, today, or tomorrow. They're able to tap into the earth memory, open the earth memory, and see what's there. So he was one of the great Omtam science leaders out there in the Dogon community. Master Naba basically was a parapsychologist. He was a metaphysician. He was an activist, and that was part of the reason probably why he saw the need on it and to take this knowledge here to the West. And so he was a writer of many books, some of which we will kind of give you the information on, and the magazines, which was part of his his journey in disseminate the information out there. He set up his own publishing company to produce literature covering the Earth Center. So Master Naba traveled, I think it was about 127 different countries, and he was requested worldwide to a lot of spiritual venues where he would speak on the topic that he's well versed in, which is spirituality. And he basically, as I said, saw the need, that the Western world, the direction that they're taking us down, is one which is leading us to destruction and self-destruction. And so his aim, his purpose really was to try to salvage the mindset of humanity, so that we can get back on track really to where we should be. we understand really right that we need the planet more than the planet needs us. And I think that's something really right that the Western world have to kind of come to terms with, that, you know, they're not gods, and, you know, we don't have to be here. The planet doesn't have to allow us to continue being here if we continue this path that we're taking. And so that migration across the Sahara Desert by these indigenous people, as I said, they've been sitting down on this knowledge for thousands of years, and we're grateful, really, right, that you know, he considered us, because as I said, for us as initiates here, we can appreciate what's been given, and for those who haven't received it yet, then, you know, it's something really worth kind of going and investigate really for yourselves. If you really want to know who you are, what your purpose, what direction you should be taking in life, well, this initiation program basically will give you some of those answers to where you should be going. As we said, the Naba's bloodline was one of these important bloodlines that actually migrated across the Sahara Desert there, and they're the bloodlines that actually they practice spirituality, astrology, astronomy, healing. That's what the Naba bloodline was focusing on. So the Earth Center in 1996, Master Naba sought permission from the Gulmul kingship and from the divinities in the hierarchy, and he was given that permission there to take this knowledge to us here in the West in 1996. And his first journey, the first temple that he opened up, was in Chicago, which is now the headquarters for the Earth Center in the Western world here. And so he started off the free school in Chicago, San Diego, and New York. Later went back to Merita, where he started off another one there in Burkina Faso, in Ouagadougou. And so shortly after that, Master Napa transitioned in 2008. Now the school itself has been continued by Naba Irita, that's his son. And the school from where Master Naba left it, he has grown the school now to about 10 to 11 schools global. And we have 2 schools here in the UK, one here in London, and the other school, our sister school, is actually in Coventry. The other schools are in Canada and USA, yeah. And so, as I said, currently, Naba Irita Shamira, he is the one that's in charge of continuing the work that Master Naba started off. So, again, we would just like to show our appreciation and say Netadua to Naba Irita, because he was actually the one that actually came here in the UK and started off our temple about 10 years ago. So, you know, you can just see that there's a lot of hard work put into this, to growing the school and getting this knowledge, this information out there to people, which is well needed. Now, the Earth Center itself, right, carries three branches, and my Mayor Tepia, who is going to be taking you through like those 3 branches and, you know, what they provide. Over to you, Sid.
Dwell Hattie. So the 3 branches are the Umtam School, the Firefly products, and the projects of Merita. So the Umtam School is where we deliver the traditional Kemetic initiation. So within the school, there are three classes you can take part within initiation. The first one being the Medu, and Medu is what's typically called in the modern society hieroglyphs, but we know it as a Medu. It's the oldest language known to humanity, and it was a language that was given to humanity by the gods. So within the Medu class, we learn the Medu Ma'it. So I know there are the Medu Neta, but we learn the Medu Ma'it, and the Medu Ma'it is the language that the everyday person would speak. So within that class, you will learn. It's split into two phases. So we learn the theory part, which is only learn about the culture, the language, the importance of the language, the values, the cultures that the language carries. And then we have the technical part where you learn how to read, write, and speak Medu. So during that class, you'll do the theory part and the technical part, and you'll learn those interwoven. We then have the Katibi class, which is where you learn the spiritual aspects of the initiation. And here's where, as Hatimi mentioned earlier, it's the Divine Holy Day. So one of the things you would learn in the Katibi class is how to actually do the Divine Holy Day, how you perform that. You also learn how you would do an ancestral holy day. You learn how to do what we call the ablutions. So before we go before the divine world, we always make sure we are clean. So make sure we're showering, we do our ablutions. So you'll learn how to do your ablutions. We also learn what we call Katibi moves, which is the traditional which the West would call yoga, but those are the traditional moves that yoga is based on. And also you will learn the traditional prayers. So there are different prayers that we use as part of what we call our Zemzem, which is what typically you would call prayers to our ancestors and lamentations. So there are prayers that go back to 40,000 years that we learn within the Katibi class as well. And then the next class is the Sunt class. The Sunt class is where you learn the traditional methods of healing yourself. So you learn how to what a healer is, first of all, what we mean by healing, what a healer is. We also learn how to kind of diagnose ourselves. We also learn how the different systems in the body work and how to kind of understand how they work, how to regulate them as well. And we also learn within the class the idea of time and space and the importance of time and space within healing. And as Hatini mentioned earlier, we also learn within that class the Tam science, reading the earth energies as well. So that is the three classes that you will learn within initiation. So currently the initiation is something that we have what we call the doors of initiation that open every year to 18 months. So currently we are in that cycle currently. So the London Temple has opened the doors of initiation, and what this means is that people who are interested in finding out more about initiation and possibly coming through initiation can come into the school and sit in 2 classes before making a decision whether they're going to go forward or not. So currently, last week was our first week of this cycle of initiation. So we also have the next class on Sunday. So if people are interested in finding out about initiation, finding out more, they can come to that class. Even though last week was the first week, we still have the second week that people can come in, find out more about, and I will give the details at the end of that. But just if people are interested, there is an opportunity to join the initiation of the London Temple. So the next branch is the Firefly branch, and this is a branch that is responsible for all the products that the Earth Centre produces. So as Hatini said earlier, we have a number of books that we produce written by Master Naba. We have calendars, posters, the Rising Firefly magazine, and also have CDs and DVDs of Master Naba's lectures as well. I think that's everything. So in terms of the different books, we have what we call the philosophy podium, and this is a book that is the only book written by an authentic Dogon high priest, and it's a book that is a Kemetic book of spirituality and philosophy. So within this book there are short essays which cover society, religion, time and space, all from a Kemetic point of view. It's a very deep book. It's a book that we refer to within the initiation, which I'll actually be reading a little bit through tonight as well. But it's a book that we always say that is something you can pick up like today, and then maybe sort of 2 months later you'll read the same chapter and you'll have a different perspective on it, because it's always kind of current and always there to get you thinking, thought-provoking. We also have the Book of Purification, which I mentioned a little bit earlier about our purifications. So this is a book that kind of details how you can do the purifications, how to actually wash yourself, clean yourself. Also gives you details on the different prayers that we use. So if you are thinking about coming to initiation, or you actually want to practice some of the zemzems that we would do, this is a book that you can actually buy to actually start that process. And we also have the Hej Batar, Inashit Tales, I can never quite say that, Inashit Tales of Hej Batar, and this is a book again that's used within the initiatic camps, with short stories, short parables around Kemetic themes and Kemetic knowledge as well. And it's a book that's used to actually kind of introduce young people into the teachings and the Kemetic ways as well. So it's a really good book if we're trying to kind of educate young people and getting them into the traditional ways as well. We also have our what we call our sidereal calendar, which is the oldest calendar known to humanity. And this calendar is based on the Sirius star. And the Sirius star is a star that has a cycle of 1,461 years. It has a perfect cycle. So every time that cycle takes place, the cycle starts at one point, it comes back to the same point every time in the same time frame, which is 1,461 years. So this the sidereal calendar is something that as initiates and also non-initiates as well can use to actually orientate themselves in time and space. So as Hattini said earlier, today's Divine Holy Day, so that is marked on the calendar, and within our calendar we have 12 months of 30 days and 1 month of 5 days. So each week is a 10-day week, and within that 10-day week we have 2 holy days. So today is a Divine Holy Day, and we also have an Ancestral Holy Day as well to make up the 2 divine holy days. And each month is governed by a deity. So this month, as we said, is Mahata. So each month is governed by a deity, and each week is governed by a deity as well. So this is a tool that we would use every day to kind of understand kind of when we're supposed to do our spiritual practices. And the importance of that is that we also understand that there are deities that cover every hour. So if we wanted to do our spiritual practices and to a particular deity, we need to know what time to do that. So that's what a calendar enables us to do, to understand when we should be doing certain things and who we can be doing it to as well. So that's a little bit about the calendar. We also have a number of posters. So we have posters on the different deities, and we also have posters on the 77 commandments, which we'll touch on a little bit this evening. And we have the Rising Firefly magazine, which is written by initiates. It comes out generally every quarter, so we are due a new edition, but this is a magazine which kind of looks at society from a Kemetic point of view. So there are subjects that we would that might be going on in modern society we will have Kemetic view about. There will also be things within that magazine like Kemetic teachings within there as well, and we also have what we call the Earth energy readings as well within that magazine. So that magazine is something that as initiates we will refer to on a regular basis as part of our kind of understanding our development as well. So that is the Firefly products, and the final branch is the projects of Merita. So the project of Merita is something, as Hatini said earlier, as Hatini said, Master Naba was somebody who came from tradition, and what the Projects Emerita is aiming to do is kind of preserve that culture. So we know that increasingly, obviously land has been taken, culture is being lost, so what the Projects Emerita is trying to do is trying to maintain the culture by maintaining it and also revitalizing the culture as well. So what the Project Emerita does, it has a number of projects that it looks after within Emerita. Sorry, when I say Emerita, we mean traditional traditional communities within Africa, so we would call that Merita. So there was like a number of projects they govern, including temple restoration, traditional farming practices, water wells, and also it's a branch that governs children's education as well, and also it's the branch that governs the pilgrimage. So we have a pilgrimage generally each year that goes back to the traditional community, so we can learn from those communities, and that is a project that governs that community as well. And it is a project that is you can donate to, so you can go on to the Earth Centre's website, find out a bit more information from that, and if you are interested to donate just to maintain those communities, that is something they would much appreciate. So just to give you some information about upcoming events at the temple. So we have a lecture next Saturday, being the 29th, which is just bear with me, which is based at our temple at 21 Sunnyside Road, and the lecture title is, just bear with 1 moment, Spiritual Confusion and Symbolism. So the subtitle is, what is spiritual confusion and does symbolism have an impact? So that takes place on the 29th of October from 6:30 to 8:30. And you can go on Eventbrite and get some more details, buy tickets on Eventbrite, but you can also buy tickets via the temple and actually come to the temple and attend the temple. And on that day, because it's a divine holy day, that day there is also a community Zemzem that you can attend as well. So that will be from 4:30 p.m. So if you are interested in coming to the all of the event, if you come at 4:30, we'll be able to take you through the ablutions, so you can clean yourself, purify yourself, and then take part in the Zemzem as well. So that is that the Divine Holy Day takes place again at the temple, 4:30 to so 4:30 to and 5:30 start, and the lecture itself starts at 6:30 to 8:30. So I'm just going to give you the details of the two temples in the UK. So as I mentioned earlier, the London Temple is based in 21 Sunnyside Road, which is in Leighton, and the postcode is E107BB. And the telephone number of temple is 0208 558 3678. So just give you that number again. So the telephone number is 0208 558 3678. And our sister's temple in Coventry, their address is 18 Biggin Hill Crescent, and that's Coventry CV3 1GS. And their contact details are telephone number landline, which is 024 7626 6859, and the mobile number is 073 0599 5944. And the email address for inquiries is the email address for inquiries is inquiries-uk@theearthcentre.org. And the Earth Centre is spelled, centre is spelled CENTER. Okay. Dwell.
Okay, Jose, send over. Yeah, so here you have it. all the information that you would need. And for the Earth Center itself, like internationally, where is it? www.
Just one second, I'll get it back up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Earth Centre internationally is www.theearthcentre.org, and obviously again centre spelled CENTER.org.
Yeah, well, and that's for, as we said, we've got temples global, and so we while we've got our orientation program going on, so other places they'll be doing their graduation and having a new intake of initiation, and there's an online initiation program going as well. So for depending on where you are, you can just log in to that number, that email address really, and basically just navigate yourself to find out where you are and what's your nearest Earth Center point that you can communicate with. And there should be someone there ready to guide you and point you in the right direction. And so what we're going to be doing now, we're going to play you just a slight interlude, and this is one of my favorite artists here, Dennis Emmanuel Brown, and as they would say, that he's the prince of reggae, but his lyrics are just good.
Oh no, here I come with love and not hatred. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow I all the days of my life. Envy no one, no wish to be with no evil man. For there'll come the day when you'll be grieved by the feathers and Liverpool's children. Oh yeah, Liverpool's children. Yeah. My head is anointed and my cup runneth over. Yeah. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow I all the days of my life. Yeah. Oh yeah, now. Oh yeah. All right. Here I come with love and not hatred. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow I all the days of my life. Envy no one, no wish to be with no evil man. For there'll come the day when you'll be whipped by the feathers and Liverpool children. Oh yeah, Liverpool children. Oh yeah. Forgive up, forgive up. Yeah, boy, whoa, yeah, man, yeah. My head is anointed and my cup runneth over. Yeah. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow I all the days of my life. Yeah. Oh yeah, now. Oh yeah. All right. Here I come with love and not hatred. children. Oh yeah, live up as a children. Yeah, my head is anointed and my cup runneth over. Yeah, surely goodness and mercy shall follow I all the days of our life.
Jai, welcome back to the Wisdom of the Nile show. And we're just going to read a chapter from the Philosophy Podium. As we said, it's the only book written by a true Dogon, and it's the book written by Prophet Nebnaba, Lumusa Morin Denibig. And as Atini said, Sen said that really the more you read it, each time you read it, you'll see something else. So
Jay. So this is chapter 16 for the Philosophy Podium, which is the dangers of being right. So there is no individual more dangerous than the one who thinks he is right. One of the greatest secrets that makes possible the continuing manipulation of society is the identification of the emotional waves upon which our senses of justice and injustice sail. In fact, the sense of us against them is born from the presumed attitude that is favourable to the good, truthful, the just, etc., and unfavourable to the bad, wrong, and the unjust, etc. You are us if you are favourable to us, and being favourable to us, you become good, right, and just, etc. The truth is that the politicization attitude of human values takes us to the starting point of a consciousness that fosters human barbarism. Human values become corrupted by the social ideologies of political leaders, and there is no more sign that can continue to be perpetuated. There are no more signs that can continue to be perpetuated delusion that our species is superior to other species. We are now becoming maybe even worse than other animals because the other species appear to be much more stable in their attitudes towards nature and towards each other. Barbarism is the attitude of the individual or people who tend to place themselves above the qualities that are recognized as human. We have a tendency to think that people who are capable of building skyscrapers, cars, planes cannot be savage, but this is untrue, absolutely untrue. What we are building has no value other than the value we assign to it. As a bird admires its nest, as a bee marvels at the way it makes honey, as a plant glorifies the beauty of the aroma of its flowers, as termites glorify the ingenuousness behind the holes that it makes in the wood. What we construct does not reflect our qualities. It stays within the borders of our animalistic abilities. Our politics and religious leaders know the importance of the humanities based on our political and religious leaders know the importance of a humanity based on human values. They know that human psychology functions only on the basis of the values set by the divine model of the world. This is the psychological nature of the modern human has become the most politicized aspect of one's existence. Nowadays, every individual is defined on the basis of what he or she believes. The religious mafia has worked to make the individual as ignorant as possible of the values that are based on the divine model of the world, and this mafia has replaced the divine values with a slippery think that's metaphoric, and I don't know what that is either. You can't see that, can you?
I can't see the word. I can't see it.
Okay, I think it's Minitet values of the new religious and with the formless and faceless gods that can at the same time take any form and any face if it becomes necessary to keep the believer in the desired state of ignorance. It is this obscurity of modern times that places the modern human in the condition of spiritual apathy, turning him into a potential victim of circumstances. We are watching this social system give us good excuses for the worst acts whenever they push us into the doing wrong. We watch them give us bad excuses for good acts every time they want to stop us from being good. History is paved with crimes that have been committed on the entire population simply because at some time the manipulators convinced a group of people that eliminating the other group of people was part of a good thing to do. Let's notice that slavery and the systematic genocide carried up upon black people did not start in the year 1283 of the Julian calendar. As if by pure coincidence, the first Christian book to present the devil in the form of a black man was written in the same year. Before this date, the deities later identified as a devil was in the form as a behemoth, a mythical animal that is composed of diverse parts of other animals. The Jewish Holocaust did not start before the Nazis started associating the Jewish people with rats. The only psychological reason behind racism that was the color the only psychological reason behind racism was that black colors were mixture of colors, while white colors by their incapability to assimilate other colors were symbolized a symbol of purity. That illusion continues today, even though those who believe they are white can see the color of their skin is anything but white. One cannot forget that the witch hunt of Europe, that in reality was nothing but hysteria of a mob that had been channeled by social and religious leaders. There is nothing more dangerous than people who believe they are right, especially if their group of interest around them affects the moral and spiritual values of the society. Diverse societies, worshippers of diverse gods, have inhabited the same territories without ever considering themselves different from each other until the day the political ambitions found in this situation something they could exploit. This is why there are no records of holy wars amongst polytheistic societies. We should recognize through this system there is this system that distorts our human aspirations. It is this system that defines our conception of power, our capabilities to reduce our neighbours to the mercy of ambitions. It is the same system that defines our sense of development as our capabilities to go to the moon. It is a system that has transformed us into a sort of cancer that nibbles and destroys anything we anything we identify as friend or enemy. This may be why our leaders can shamelessly announce to us they have guaranteed the security with nuclear arsenals that will destroy our enemies and us together.
Well, and as you can see from that, it's like when your senses are being played against you, we can be easily manipulated, and those manipulation again is going to come back to your senses, because we know that probably 80-90% of the people are actually functioning just on their emotions, and they're not actually thinking through and having a realization of what's been presented to them and how to go about emotionally detaching themselves from certain things and trying to critically think and look at things what's been presented to them. So, there's a lot of drama coming through, like slavery itself, colonization, that many of us are still facing and going through. That emotion that's not been, there's no counselling, nothing's been been given really right to kind of to move those people forward. So all that is still there, and any little thing that people see out there, give them that reminder back of what's not been, these certain issues that's not been dealt with from an emotional kind of aspect. So tonight's topic really, we're going to be just looking at what like emotional control, and these are just one of the principles that as initiates that we're expected to develop, really, isn't it?
Yep.
And how emotional, how would you say, we're very emotional people, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, emotion is part of who we are, isn't it? So, I mean, we are emotional people. Well, have emotions as people, should I say? That's more correctly, isn't it? Yeah.
And we tend probably to strive more on our emotional side than we do probably on our, what would you say, critically thinking, like a more mental side.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think especially in this system, we're kind of prone to be more emotional, or get more emotional, or have more emotional things that are kind of directed at us, and we're not really kind of schooled or educated in terms of how to interpret those things and how to manage those things that are coming towards us. So yeah, I would say we are tending to kind of, in this system certainly, we tend to kind of use more of our emotions than our critical thinking.
And really, at the end of the day, we can see that as a society will play on that, because if when we even just look at like our daily working routine and hours that we spend at work, oftentimes people never really get the chance to kind of come home and what they would call it, debrief themselves, really. So any emotional experiences, things that happen throughout your day, we never have time to sit there really like and check ourselves, so we can balance ourselves. So they are playing on that we never really have time really for self, and then the little time that we do get, the TV then becomes the other person then really in the room, isn't it? That's actually controlling your life, really, isn't it? And we can see the amount of emotions and drama that's actually put into some of these TV series, where people actually believe in some of these things that it's real.
yeah.
That's one of the biggest dangers out there, really, I feel, the television. What would you say?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I think the idea of like you say, in the television programs, but also the kind of almost the climate that we kind of live in this system is like, we're constantly getting bombarded with information about, especially in these times, I don't know how many times I must have heard cost of living crisis in the last 6 months, but that's a kind of emotion for people, isn't it? You're constantly seeing things on the television where they're interviewing people who are struggling, and that just heightens your kind of your worry, your insecurity, that kind of, that plays on that, doesn't it? So
and we do see as well, because I've seen quite a few people out there since this that they've introduced, or that they're going to be putting energy bills up, and we see prices going up in the shop, where even before it happened, people were actually taking it quite seriously and really kind of making cutbacks before it even happened. And we know that when there's fear, then there becomes stress, trauma, and everything that comes with it. So that itself then becomes like an health issue, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So we really want to kind of say, look at, like, say, emotional control, really, right? And what is it? What is emotion, really, if we were to kind of say, look at it in its sense? And I would say, controlling our emotion, we first have to understand what is it that we're trying to control. Because unless you're aware, of something consciously, you can't do anything about it. And so if we're not in tune of what our emotions are, and be in tune with self, because these emotional control is basically coming from having self-control, having been able to kind of to look at things from a mental stage, really, like thinking things through more, and knowing about self, how to deal with self by you probably understanding yourself a little bit more. That would probably enable you to probably regulate yourself in a better way, that you can see what's coming, you understand yourself, you know what triggers you off. Then when these things come to you, you're probably in a more better position where you can think, okay, then I can see how I would react if such and such a thing was going to be happening. So you can take more, sidetrack, really, like to avoid certain confrontation. So not knowing self, then really we're just open, really, right, for anything that comes at us, really, become like a shock to the system. And oftentimes then that's where the emotion comes in, where you're going to just respond, action, reaction. And oftentimes when that happens, it's only after the deed has been done that people actually stop and think about, wow, I just did that. But sometimes the consequence of what you've done is going to carry a penalty or something with it. So, having self-awareness, really, like, to be in control of your thoughts, your feelings, and that you can do the right actions is one of those things, or those areas that we have to look into more deeply, into, say, how we can have that self-control, that emotional control of ourselves. So we're saying, like, your emotions are feelings, and these feelings, they often comes in different form. Like, there's moments when it's happiness, where you're feeling love, happiness, all that, that pleasurable aspect of your life, where you're happy, you're in a loving mood, you're giving, sharing, and we all want to be happy, really, but at the same time we can see where too much happiness brings, or can bring, what would you say? We see people that's overexcited and overindulge in a lot of, eating their favorite food. That indulgence, what it brings, it can bring like destruction. So we can see that, as we said, those emotions, those feelings that we get, often, as I said, comes in happiness, and then there's sadness, then there's the fear, and then there's anger. And as we said, each of those, they come with the concept of constructive and destructive. And depends on how they played out to us as to how we're going to respond to them. And so these emotions they're constantly with us, because they would you say that they are a part of our everyday life, really, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. They definitely are. Yeah.
And so it's not something that we can avoid, but it's about how we can contain and control them, really. That's probably more when we're talking about self-control. Really, it's about controlling things, rather than, we can't wipe out what's already there, is it? So those feelings and emotions, really, it is about control. In our initiation, it's about, we know that we can't destroy evil, and so evil has the right to exist as good does. And so the most that we can do, say, in those cases, is to control ourselves, to contain ourselves. And that's part of what the initiation does. It kind of you get the kind of the knowledge, information that you need, that you can develop yourself, get better understanding of yourself, so that you're able then to kind of to be in control of that. we see where structures like the family structure, how important they can be within our growth. You know, just having that support network there that we can tap into, that we can, you know, someone to liaise with, someone that you can talk to, that can counsel you, that can assist you really, to guide you. And that's probably what's missing from a lot of these younger people, where the elderly or the elders now, they're put into a home, or we're not living nowhere near as a extended family. So that support, that lack of that understanding that we could get is not there no more. So we're left on our own to try to decipher for ourselves by the lack of experience. This is where the elders come in, because they would have had that experience that they could share. And this is where that family plays that important part in the structuring of how we go about processing certain information. You know, how do we value and devalue certain things that comes to us. We know that there is that concept of love and hate, or good and evil, and we know that within the dynamics of those two things, evil is dynamic, and it has no boundaries. And because of that, we see that within the system, how, you know, they play out their evil onto us, and we're so gullible really, because oftentimes, as I said, we don't have time to look into things, so we just absorb it and play along, you know. And you know, we get to a stage where we're told that right is wrong and wrong is right, and that's how our senses and our emotions are easily manipulated by society, and before we know it, they have us doing things that we shouldn't be doing. So we can't allow ourselves to be controlled, to be manipulated, our emotions to be manipulated just through the lack of not knowing self. And as I said, that's what initiation tries to teach you about. You know, we came here for a purpose. We come here to fulfill a destiny, and we know that there's two forces there. We have the Setian principle, and we have the Rosarian principle, and we see that one represents life and one represents death. And as we said, the dynamic one is the destructive one. And you know, if most of the decisions that we're making in our lives are just based on an emotional aspect, where the brain is not involved in that part of the decision making, it's just about the feelings. We know that we have intuition, that's another part of our brain, as opposed to where we become so instinctive, where we base things from just an instinctive perspective. And oftentimes when it's based off that instinct, again, we oftentimes make the wrong decision there. And we say our intuition is like the second brain, and it's like someone is speaking to you. We speak about the ancestors and the importance that our ancestors play in our life. Some of those intuitions could be like your ancestors expressing themselves to you, you know, like this is the way to go, you know, and then we overrule those things here. Oftentimes, you know, and end up doing the wrong, doubting ourselves. We then end up doing the wrong things. I'll let you come in with a little bit here of your.
Okay, well, so yeah, I think as we sort of touched on a little bit earlier, this modern society really kind of is constantly throwing emotional stuff at us, for us to kind of either react in a certain way. As Hattini said, you know, we've had the media, the television programs, even like we said earlier, in terms of even just going out to work, we kind of find sometimes at work we're kind of getting to disagreements, conversations with people, which kind of touches our emotions, whether it kind of like anger or frustration, or sadness. All those things are playing out, you know, even if we're thinking about, even when we're trying to travel to and from work, the amount of times we might find someone trying to block us if we're driving, or trying to cut us up, and that's all kind of just tension and our emotions. So this society is always kind of trying to keep us in an emotional state, and I think it's and a modern society is almost like legitimizes the emotion. You know, they don't really kind of focus much on critical thinking. They like to keep us in an emotional state, whether it's, you know, as I mentioned, whether it's, you know, euphoria or sadness. They enjoy that. They don't like us to be thinking or having the ability to step back and just analyze situations or think about situations. They like us thinking with our heart constantly. I would say they constantly like us thinking with our heart. They don't want us thinking with our brains, our minds. So we know, as I said recently, obviously, I think it was last month. It must have been last month. We had Queen Elizabeth's funeral, and that 10 days was a kind of a whole emotion. You know, it was a lot of emotion going out, where people were doing odd things like queuing up for 12 hours in the cold. You know, I mean, on a regular day, why would you do that?
It was a mentality, isn't it? But they know how to train.
Exactly, because that kind of situation was obviously orchestrated for such a long time. So they knew exactly when she died, how they were gonna play that out, and what buttons they were gonna try and press. So that is kind of just something that is kind of like a person dying, but you know, we suddenly kind of wrapped up in an emotional, a lot of people, shall I say, wrapped up in an emotional state. Yeah.
But it was interesting though, because I mean, from a diaspora perspective, really, right, where we know we've gone through colonialism and slavery and things like that, and considering really, right, that this monarch, she was a part of that system, that structure, really, right, that oppressed and still oppressing many indigenous African people, taking their resources. And we're struggling. We see how many people would attempt to go across the Sahara Desert and across the sea to try to get here, really, right, for what they would deem as a better life. Yeah. But what was fascinating was just the reaction of the victims. You know, this what they call it, Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
That was like an experience there, and it just didn't make no sense, did it? Really?
No, definitely didn't. But again, it's that kind of emotion, isn't it? It's that kind of
they played on it.
Play on emotion. Yeah, definitely. So, and obviously, we're in 2020 now, so we've had like almost 2 years of COVID, and that has been a big emotional thing on so many levels. I think most of the emotions that we could think of were played out during the COVID. Be it fear, you know, people's fear, and I think that was a lot of what went on. We know sometimes people took the injection for reasons, you know, thought they would get back to a normal life, wanted to travel, wanted to see friends, wanted to see family. But again, it's just playing on people's emotion, wasn't it? It was kind of giving the people the idea of like, we'll give you something to make you happy again, or back to contented again. But the reality of that, you know, we don't know how that reality's played out, so I'm not going to go into that too much. But again, we think about that COVID period. It is kind of, you know, you had some people in certain families saying, I'm not taking the vaccine, some people saying I'm taking the vaccine, and that kind of conflict going on just
divided,
about exactly
it
yeah
actually divided families as well. So they were, throughout what they were trying to impose on us, they actually as well instigated division amongst families.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because, you know, there was so much misinformation where people just didn't know which direction or what to believe or what not to believe. And I think with the brain, it has this thing where if it's not sure, it's probably going to go for what you think is the safest bet, really, isn't it? So where the vaccine was put out there as like your best option, your best choice, you know, you're better off taking it. A lot of people did end up rushing to it, only now to find, right, that fear, and it's one of those massive emotions, really, right, that I think that's an innate part of us as human beings.
Yeah, we need that
fight or fright concept there.
Yeah, it's part of our survival. Yeah.
So when someone knows how to manipulate that, and get you into that mode where you just do what you think is the best decision or the best choice that you're going to be making for yourself, but really it wasn't. You know, and, you know, we see many of our people now. They're basically they're suffering. You know, and it's a shame, really. Like, they're perfectly healthy people, you know, young handhold, and they are left. In a lot of cases, people are left disabled. Many have died, and so many are going to become disabled and die. The consequence of their emotion was played upon. There was an agenda behind it, because there was a goal behind what was instigated there, and it served not the people, but it served those people who are in charge of society, because, you know, there was an agenda there. You know. Yeah, I'll let you continue.
No, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, I think obviously, like we've said, is that when we're thinking about things, even like COVID, you know, as an emotional thing, a lot of times people weren't given the opportunity, or I didn't have the ability to kind of just step back and think, you know, what is being presented to them. You know, is what's being presented to me logical, and is what's been said, the remedies that's been given to me logical? It wasn't. A lot of times it was just constantly drummed into people, you know, and people didn't really have the time, weren't given the time to, a lot of times, to think about what was being said, you know, and kind of analyse what was being said. And that's what, as initiates and come through the Earth Centre and traditional communities, that's one of the things we are taught in terms of the importance of kind of analysing information, trying to have emotional control. Yes, we understand, you know, if there's something out there that we don't know about, yeah, there might be a fear, there might be an unknown about it, but it doesn't mean that you just go with that straight away. You have to kind of have the opportunity to actually think about what's been presented. So yeah, I mean, those are two relative kind of recent examples, should I say, of kind of, but we can, I'm sure, as people can think, they can actually think there are lots of examples where our buttons are being pressed, and for whatever reason, and I would say that this society does kind of it doesn't seem to have or the modern society, say, it doesn't seem to have a kind of any limits on emotions. You know, we have, you know, we think about sayings in society, you know, things like, you know, wearing your heart on your sleeve, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, that is a contemporary agreement, but we know what that means, but it's a contemporary agreement. But also things like bull in a china shop, you know, those kind of sayings. I'm sure there's lots of them sayings that, you know, it just kind of permeate around society, but they're all based on emotions that, you know, this society kind of almost legitimizes, and we don't actually never really question those kind of things, really, that when people say those things, we know what they mean, but we're kind of like, it's an outpouring of emotion all the time, isn't it? So
we're grown into a society, really, right, from a baby, emotionally, right, we've been conditioned, really, right, to accept values that was imposed on us. We're told this is right, this is wrong, and we just accept it, never challenge it, we just gone along with it. And then only when things happen, we think, oh, I didn't know that, or I wasn't aware of that. But they would say ignorance is not an excuse. Yeah. And so the onus is on us, really, right, to find out and make sure, really, right, before we actually go out there and do anything. And as you know, Metepe, who said, really, is like, we're, as initiates, we're kind of taught or given a tool to say, well, if somebody comes and presents something to you, it's about those whys and who and where. No, but we're taught to question. You know, we don't just like say, he's like, who's your master's master? Because we know that anybody can come and present anything to you, but ultimately, where they're getting it from, who told them, you know, how do you validate what they're coming to you with to say that you're going to make anything from it? And so we understand, really, like, say, that anybody can have any kind of opinion, but, you know, where are those opinions coming from? And we're also shown, really, as well, that you know, think before you speak, so to speak, you know, because once something comes out, you can't take it back. And so there is that you know, your the, it's that you only live once, and more or less like say anything goes into society, it doesn't really matter, you know. And you wanna?
Yeah, so I was kind of looking at this and thinking about the idea of crimes of passion.
Yeah.
You know, because I thought about that as quite a really kind of an interesting concept, because obviously the understanding of that is that somebody commits a crime, a murder generally, or inflicts something on somebody, a partner or something, but they do it within, like, they're out of their emotional control. They're not emotionally controlled, and they commit that crime, and that has a kind of I know it has a kind of it goes back to medieval time, where men, if they felt that their woman was either, I'm going to put this in inverted commas, nagging or being disrespectful to them, they if they killed them, they could say, well, that was a crime of passion because she was upsetting me. She was kind of, you know, she could provoke that, and that is kind of permeated through society, where now people can commit that crime and say, well, I wasn't in emotional control. Versus like when they do like a deliberate, what's conceived as deliberate, you know, killing, you know, premeditated, you know, and that's so when you do like a crime of passion, potentially, I'm saying potentially here, your sentence might be less, where more there. But I was kind of thinking about that in terms of the initiation, and thinking actually, as initiates, we've got a code, the 77 divine code. It just says, "Thou shalt not kill."
Yeah.
It doesn't have any caveats there about, oh, well, if it's this situation,
conditions.
yeah, it doesn't have that. You know, it just says, "Thou shalt not kill," and I think that's where, as initiates, we're kind of we're referring to something, that we're standing on something that is kind of it's clear, it's concise, it doesn't have any kind of ambiguities, and it's giving you a code of behavior, because that's literally what it is, but it's allowing you to regulate your behavior, actually giving you that ability to have the emotion control, because you're having to think about what you're doing. You can't just act on your emotion, because you have those commandments that are telling you, no, you can't do this. So when you're in the situations where someone might be upsetting you or something, your first port of call can't be think, well, I'm kind of like emotional, I could just do what I want. No, you can't just do what you want, because there are things that are guiding you, principles that are guiding you.
Really.
Exactly.
This wasn't something given to us by a man, where they were made up from emotional perspective. These are divine principles that carries no emotion. Is like is the do or the don'ts. And even when we look at, like, say, the 42 negative confession, you know, of Mahat, that's one of the that was one priest who were able to kind of say to carry out 42 of the 77 that's given to us. So that itself is an achievement, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, definitely.
You know, because that takes a lot of emotional control,
exactly,
to kind of abstain from doing. Thou shalt not be impatient. You know, how oftentimes we get kind of emotionally kind of attached, like we want to, you know, we hastily want to do something, and that takes over, and then we get upset, or someone get upset because you wasn't there on time, or, you know,
yeah. But I think just for me, that is the one of the, when we're talking about one of the principles of spirituality, and as Hattie said, we have lots of tools, but you know, 77 is one of the tools that kind of begins to kind of almost impose that kind of that behavior, that, you know, that yes, you can have emotions, but there is kind of things that are keeping you in check, to make sure that you're not kind of just acting solely on your emotions. And I think that's, for me, one of the differences, or the big difference between sort of traditional culture and the modern society we live in, because there isn't, within the modern society, as we mentioned earlier, there isn't kind of any kind of boundaries, really. You know, you can be emotional within the right setting with the right people, and it's quite legitimized. They're quite happy for that, you know, people to be emotional. Whereas within traditional culture, within our initiation, we need to regulate ourselves, because we know where those emotions can take us. You know, where if we are getting angry, we know potentially where that anger can take us, you know, and where it can lead us to. So and it's interesting, you know, for me, just to reflect on that in terms of like the divine world, when they gave us the 77, how they thought about what humanity needed to actually function as humanity, as trying to function as human beings, shall we say. They gave us those codes because they thought there needs to be a behaviour that we are actually functioning on, and actually giving us some tools that we can kind of stand on as well. So that was something in terms of just thinking about the idea of emotion control, and just kind of thinking what goes on in the modern society, and what the importance of emotion control within traditional society, and what maybe we need to kind of reflect on more as within modern society, how we can kind of use the tools that we have, and just regulate ourselves in terms of emotional control.
Well, we see how they compromise already on what we would consider to be like contemporary language, words and things like that. And so this is how they break down the structure in it. We have an agreement. It's okay to slap on someone in the face and say, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Yeah. You come back and do it again, right? But there was no change or nothing being addressed there to say you're not going to do it again. Apart from that word, you're talking about forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had a little take on that, yeah?
Well, no, I think it's more just that the idea of forgiveness is not something we see in the 77. We don't see that, given by the gods, but within modern religions, that is a notion of forgiveness, that you can do an act, go to a priest at their man or whoever, ask for some level of forgiveness, and then you're granted that. But then where's the growth there as you as an individual, because that you can go back and do it again, so that's the kind of something that, again, this modern society kind of really pushes, don't we? Sometimes when we see things, typically when we see things, maybe just reflecting on a particular shooting in America a while back, where I think was a young white man who went into one of those churches and shot a load of parishioners in there. But there's still that notion of, okay, well, we can forgive him, for doing the act, but that doesn't really make sense, does it? Because how does that, how do you justify doing the action and then get forgiveness? That doesn't make sense.
Well, at the same time, though, we understand, right, that if when we hold on to, there's certain emotions, like anger that we have against certain people, fear, they also can be destructive to ourselves as well.
Yeah.
So we understand, really, right, that there's certain emotions and things, they're not good to be holding, that we have to let go, because it's like we can end up being the one that's actually carrying the load. So when we project certain negative energies towards people out there from an emotional perspective, playing on them, we're actually sometimes, in a lot of cases, just destroying ourselves. So it's good if you can have that control of emotion, and when certain situation arises, rather than reacting to it or getting engaged, if you can detach, there probably are ways, really, like in trying to make that detachment, to maintain or to have that self-emotional control. Sometimes just, you were saying, you know yourself, that probably certain words can trigger you off, so if it's coming, then that there's the safety mechanism for yourself to neutralize yourself. And it is about, I think, half of emotional control, for me personally anyway, it's about trying to learn and understand myself a little bit more, so that under those given situations I can see certain things coming, so I can try to avoid them or have that better control of how to deal with them. And I remember when I was doing martial art, really, when my teacher said, fear is one of those things, really, like that most people, when they're confronted with fear, the first thing is that they panic. And he said, really, in a situation like that, oftentimes all you need to do is just to take a deep breath. And that one breath in itself, because 1 second in your life is a long time. It's just that you don't appreciate and value that 1 second. It's only when it comes down to that last second you realize how long that second really is. And so that deep breath in itself is oftentimes giving you enough time that you can compose yourself, and then sometimes you know you might walk out of a door and you never expect someone to be coming in at the same time, and just that initial and we see sometimes how some people are startled and how people react in those different ways. You know, so emotions comes in so many different aspects in our lives, and we, as we say, that as we can see, is that love. Would you say that's one of the greatest emotions out there that people struggle with? And hate.
Yeah, I mean,
Those two, love and hate. Is one of those ones in it that throughout most human beings' life, that's going to be some of the experience that they're going to be having in it, from a loving aspect or from a hate.
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes it's a struggle to control those emotions in those two areas alone.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I think one of the things, you know, I think we were speaking earlier about, but I think one of the things in terms of the initiation, like you said, it does give you, in terms of the emotional control, it does give you the, like you mentioned earlier, when you go into situations and you might be kind of, whatever emotion is playing out, you do have something that within you that begins to say, what do I need to do in this situation, or what is it I need to do? And I think this society, these modern societies, they don't really like you to do that. They don't like you to, because I remember I was saying, I know we were speaking yesterday about this, but I remember I won't call his name, but there was a Hattani who I was speaking to, and we were just having a general conversation, and he was saying that he'd had a conversation with somebody, and it got into a little bit of a conflict situation, and he said that, you know, he didn't know how to react at that particular time, so he said, I'm just going to come away from this and I'm going to have to think, and then I'll come back to that person or that situation in a few days when I've had a chance to think about what it is that person said and what it is I want to say back to that person. And you think about this in this society, that doesn't really play out that often, because if you have that kind of attitude, I think sometimes they think there's a bit of weakness there, that you can't respond immediately. Why can't you respond to that particular situation where maybe you think, I don't know what to say, you're pushing
because they want that reaction
exactly
you know,
where a better strategy might be saying, actually, I don't know how to react, but I might in a couple of days or a couple of hours or whatever have an answer to what you said, or a response to what you said. But more than, like you say, being pushed to say something that I don't want to say, or I don't know what I'm saying, and then it kind of like creates another situation that you don't know how to control. It gets out of hand, and I think that's what happens a lot within this system, where we're constantly
we have to respond to a certain given situation immediately. But as you say, taking that time, having that patience with yourself to kind of say, well, no, I think this is best. Because oftentimes, sometimes you don't even know what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the emotional side of it that you don't really aware, but you're reacting to something that you don't really fully understand or appreciate. And yeah, if you can take that deep breath and walk away, take yourself out of that situation momentarily. You know, no one's saying that you forget the whole thing, but my thing is that fire can't burn without fuel. Yeah, and so in those given situations, when someone is expecting a reaction from you, then it's best if you just don't put no more fuel on the fire and trying to compose yourself, and then come back. And if you make a conscious decision that you want to put a little bit more fuel on that fire, then as that at least you're in control of that, because this is all about controlling yourself. And sometimes we will do things deliberately, as fun as it might seem, but now that you're doing it in a more informative way, you know, as opposed to action reaction, which we see that most of us, they say 70% of people, in a sense, really, right, they're emotionally, well, you can say that we will make most of our decisions through an emotional stage, but oftentimes that 70%, the decision that they make are oftentimes from that emotional state is oftentimes against themselves. Yeah, So they're getting emotional, responding emotional, but those actions that they put out there oftentimes come back against them.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things I think they say, isn't it? You make some of your worst decisions when you're in that emotional state because you're not kind of functioning, as we say, you're functioning from the heart. You're not functioning from the mind, are you?
Yeah.
So,
And as initiates, we're taught really emotion, don't think. This is why when the Creator created us, He gave us what they call a brain. But oftentimes, we tend not want to kind of use that because it takes a lot of thinking, doesn't it? To think about things and kind of come to a certain kind of decision that we're going to be making. I mean, so many different areas in our lives. We look at the workplace. Look how emotions are used to turn workforces against each other. People are emotionally, a turn really, right? They can say colleague because they want to, or they're aspiring to be, for promotion, for better wages and things like that. And oftentimes they don't even realize what that they've been used themselves. It's all about, you put people in certain little positions, pecking order kind of thing, they would call it, and so when you put those people in those various areas, there's that ego sense coming in, like I'm better than you, I'm in a higher position than you, that ego, that emotion of like, and so people then tend to kind of inflicts unnecessary pain, to oftentimes appease their bosses, for seeking promotions and other areas in their career where basically they've been played against each other's, against their emotions against each other. We know that's a deliberate thing because unity is strength, and so if you have a collective workforce that was probably thinking and working together, then the boss wouldn't have so much power over them. So it's a divide and control. And before everybody, so there's never going to be unity there. There's always going to be disunity, and this is where cleverly the system does that with the black and white issues, where ultimately at the end of the day they're still oppressing, the Europeans are still oppressing their own people, but there's that little, they make them believe that they're a little bit more than us who's at the bottom of the pile, so they believe they believe in that, so their emotions are being played upon, and so they have that continual where we're fighting each other down at the bottom, but the day when we stop and emotionally stop and think really who our true battle should be with, that's probably when we will start seeing changes within society, because then we will know more who and what we should be fighting or standing up against. As I say, I see the workplace as just one of those arenas where you see that all the time. People are coming in there and they're oppressing each other because they were told to, in order to get promotions, to get that higher little income, for people to make themselves feel better than the next person, and higher than you or whatever. Yeah. And so, we'll just take a little another little break. We'll bring in
All pirates, yes, they rob by, sold unto the merchant ships. Minutes offer there to guide from the bottomless pit, but my aim was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help the sing these songs of freedom? That's all I ever had. Redemption song, redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. I've no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help us sing these songs of freedom? That's all I ever had. Redemption song, redemption song, redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Whoa, I've no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop off the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We got to fulfill the book. Won't you help us sing these songs of freedom? That's all I ever had. Redemption song, all I ever had. Redemption song, songs of freedom, songs of freedom.
Jai greeting once back again. Natalie, you gotta sit.
So, EJ. Oh, EJ. Might be EJ.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Your mic is up there.
Okay. So I just wanted to have a little break there and just to reflect on what we're focusing on this evening. And so what we're trying to explore this evening and discuss this evening is really around the idea of motions and having emotional control, and what the initiation, going through initiation, enables you to begin to develop as initiates. The idea of it's one of the elements of spirituality, one of the principles of spirituality that we learn, and the importance of emotional control and having emotional control, because we recognize that we have emotions as humans. You know, it's part of us as humans, but we understand that we need to have that. We need to make sure have control in terms of how we operate and how we function, to make sure that we're not kind of losing control of emotions. We're not our behavior is a way that was going to be detrimental to us as initiates and our spiritual development and growth as well. So that's the idea of the topic this evening. And what we are trying to do is look at the 5 principles as a series. So hopefully what we'll be doing next week is looking at the next element of spirituality, or sorry, not next week, the next show we do, the next program we do, looking at the next element of spirituality. So hopefully at the end of the 5 series, that will give you a good idea around kind of what we mean by the principles and how they function as part of the initiation as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of people don't realize how important really emotional control really is in our life. And you know, in initiation, that's one of the greater areas. You know, just as initiates, having discipline and control amongst each other as initiates, as fellow brothers and sisters within the initiation program, and we can see how that lack of emotional control, oftentimes really, you know, as Sen said before, really the system basically is programmed us to be emotionally kind of sensitized, really, right, where we just basically just do without thinking. And initiation is about trying to get us to stop and think, to critically think, to look at things before we do. You know, just realizing really, right, that without that emotional control, and as we say, what you put out, you can't take it back. So if you committed a sin, that can't be rubbed out. Yeah, that's going to be there. That's going to be one of the things, and that's going to be added on to your judgment on in the day of on the judgment. Or so it's important that we can slow ourselves down a bit and have, you know, we're going to be, one of our topics going to be like having that clarity of mind where we can start to process things and critically look at things, you know, think before we act. You know, that's so important, you know, think before you talk, you know, because once those words leave your, you know, as Master Never said, the food that's in your mouth, is it yours until you swallow it? Because up to that time, they're really right, anything could happen. You know, you could choke, anything really, right? So it is about realizing and understanding self and the importance really like of our actions and the weight that they carry out there, you know, on our family members within the initiation program, because initiation is basically teaching us or giving us the values that we need to use when we go out there in the outer society, you know, within our families, within our communities, within all the places that we're going to be interacting with people. You know, how are we going to behave under given situations? How much self-control, how much emotional control can we have within society, really, right, that's out there, really, right, that their aim and their agenda, really, right, is to distract you, to send you down the wrong path. And, you know, as we said, emotion is just is one of our first natural instinct or behavior that we have within ourselves. Just, you know, feelings. We've all got feelings, and those, as we say, those feelings are going to be coming in different ways. But how do we manage those feelings in those different areas when they come to us? We know we look at fear. You know, fear is something really, right, that through fear, it can stop you from doing things. You know, and it can make you do things, because through fear it can make you kill someone. You know, you're frightened, so you're going to react in a negative way. And so fear could also contain you, you know, but it's how you allow that to manage you, you know. So we look at anger, or we see that we all get angry within ourselves, all of us, but it's having the control to not allow it to bring you to anger. And so these are the disciplines that we're trying to kind of to grow within ourselves, that we can actually become responsible and take control of ourselves and not allow society and people around you where their intentions are to try to get the worst out of you, not to allow them to have that power and control over you. And so that's how important this topic really is, because if we actually look in our lives and see how oftentimes people make you do things that you had no intention that you wanted to do, and it's only after you realize that, but look at that, I allow myself to be got at again. You just lost that control of yourself, of your emotion, and just responded without thinking. And many people that's in prison now, it's because of that, a lack of emotional control, and just lashing out and just reacting, rather than having that self-control within self. And these are the principles and things that we need to develop in ourselves, really. And as I said, this is one of the 5 principles of this series that we're going to be doing, just to show you how important they are. And you could imagine when you combine them together, you have clarity of mind, strength, you have all these different principles there, really, right? That's just going to make you a more complete version of yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got anything to add to that really, but it's gone long. But no, I think it's one of the things as you go through initiation and you kind of begin to appreciate some of the tools we get, and this is one of them that we get, but there's lots of others. It all kind of begins to come together, and it's things that you can stand on. You've got principles that you can stand on. You've got so you're not. I think for me, it's what you're not kind of almost just blown around in the air, or is that the right saying? Blown around with the wind, shall we say? And you're not, you're steadfast. So if you're taking on the idea of, okay, what do we mean by spirituality, and this is what it means, these are the things that I need to be working on, then you are kind of beginning to develop, and you find that in yourself as well. Like, you find yourself developing because you are beginning to kind of practice these principles. You are kind of, when you're in situations, you are beginning to think a little bit more, thinking, okay, what's happening here? What do I need to do? And that's part of the development, spiritual development as well, isn't it? Just having that kind of that idea of just stopping and thinking about what it is, what's happening here, and what do I need to do in this situation. That's part of your development, because previously you might have just thought, okay, I'm just going to go and do this. You're just going to do this. So that's part of your development. That's part of your growth, and that kind of just keeps developing and developing. So yeah, we thought this is an important topic, and hopefully as we go on, we can kind of sort of build on the 5, and hopefully they begin to see how they interact with each other, interweave with each other. So hopefully it's something we can just hopefully give people just a little what's the word, a little step into the idea of strength. A bit of strength,
just things that we take for granted, and how easily controlled you are, or controllable you are, right? Just by not kind of having idea of self. And that's all it is, just trying to learn a little bit more about yourself, who you are, and there's just different things in aspect in your life, like knowing what your goals are, because having that, and what your purpose is, that could also give you the strength as well, the determination to override and overcome certain of these emotional challenges that your friends, family, people around you are going to throw at you. And yeah, I've found that challenging, and where I can, I just before we signed off, there was an incident where I remember like it was a divine holiday like today, and I did my Zemzem, did everything right that I needed to do that day. I was ready to go, and where I live is like we have some people who are very selfish, and parking was one of those kind of little problems where I am. And I looked out my window, and my neighbour's been doing this for years and years, really, right? And I was able to contain myself. But this is where, this on that particular day, that emotional control, that discipline that I should have had, went out the window, and I went and reacted, right, to something that I shouldn't have done. And it was only after I realised what I did, but by then it could have been too late. Because that reaction or that action already come out.
Taking place, yeah.
Yeah. And so, the moral is that I was in a good place up to that moment until I went back on myself, and engaged in something which was a negative reaction, a negative, like, say, emotion that I should have been able to overcome. And what we find that in initiation, that's how the challenges come along, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's like it probably comes to you more than it does to the person who is not going through an initiation, or it seems to be that way. You're really being tested, really. How much have you learned, and how strong have you become since, into developing these qualities that's gonna try enable you to be like that better person, what you need to be. And so we're gonna play this tune here again by this is Rita Marley, and
It's massive.
sorry, Martin Griffith.
And if you don't come, brother, go looking, yeah, for happiness.
The lovely Marcia Griffiths.
Okay,
You
so I'm just gonna go through some of the kind of the events at the London Temple currently. So we have the doors of initiation that are open currently. They're open for another week. So if people are interested in finding out a bit more about traditional Kemetic initiation, you can attend on Sunday. So this coming Sunday, for free. So there's no cost involved from 11 till 5 o'clock. So there's 3 classes that take place, which is the Medu class, the Katibi class, and the Sunt class. So those 3 classes will be taking place this Sunday. It's the second week and the last week of the free classes. So if you are interested and you want to find out more information, please do attend. And that is at our temple, which is 21 Sunnyside Road, Leighton, and that is E10 7BB. And if you want to contact us just for more information, the telephone number is 0208 558 3678, and the email address is inquiries uk@theearthcentre.org, and the centre is spelled CENTER. We also have a lecture, our monthly lecture. So that's the this month's subject or topic, shall I say, is the spiritual confusion and symbolism. So that takes place on the 29th of October, 6:30 to 8:30. And the door price is £7. Children under the age of 14 can come in free, and children or young people between the age of 14 and 18, it's £5. There are some online tickets as well, which the online ticket price is £5. And again, if you do want to find out some more information, the telephone number is 0208 553678. So that is the lecture. The same day is on that Saturday is a Divine Holy Day. So like today, it's a day which is a day that's advantageous to engage with the divine world. So this is where we open up the temple for the community to take part in the community Zemzem. So this will take place on the 29th. And this is at 4:30, so that's to be at the temple at 4:30, same address. So if you can get there if you are there for 4:30, it will enable you to do the ablutions and take part in the Zemzem. If you are coming, if you can please bring either white clothes or sort of light clothes as well to take part in the Zemzem. So those are the events going on at the temple at the moment. I will give you the details of our sister school in Coventry as well. I think, as far as I'm aware, they have the doors of initiation will be open as well. So if you are in that area and are interested in doing initiation in the Coventry Temple, their details are the address of their temple is the 18 the Biggin Hill Crescent, which is Coventry CV3 1GS, and the telephone number is 024 76 26 6859. And their mobile number for the Coventry Temple is 073 05 99 5944. So that's the information. I'm not entirely sure when their doors of initiation open and shut, so it's worth just making contact with them. But I know that their doors will be open, so if you do need some further information, just give them a call or drop them an email, and the inquiries uk@theearthcentre.org. Okay.
Yeah, dua for that. And on that note, we just want to say dua to bless for giving us this space for broadcasting on behalf of the Earth Center. And we'd just like to say, may the ancestors continue to guide and protect you all until our next show. And hope that those really who are seeking, the information that's read out, they're just opportunity is there. This is once every 18 months.
Yeah, year to 18 months, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's this could really set you on your path, really, as to where you need to be going. And so, as I would say, it's better to try it than not to try it at all. At least you've had an idea of what's there in front of you, really, and how much really how much more you could know about yourself, really, and your purpose. And that's the distraction that society is taking us away from, as to knowing what our purpose really is. So on that note, we'll just say duao. I'm from the Earth Center, from myself, Nahib Sanesibik, and
Metepio Wemishai.
Duao, yeah. And we'll play that. Could you find that one? Is it that one? I can't see it. Michael, you too.
Okay, alright, cool.
This song goes in the memory of the beloved Prophet Nebnabala Musa Marudinabig, the doggone priest, Mahir, the truth teller, Bisina Basa, which means I'll be appreciated after I'm gone. He's the man who overcome the devils with love. He's the man who speaks because he has something to say. The man of wisdom, the definition of humanity. Mahiru, he comes from far away, from far away, from far away, from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, from far away, from far away, Prophet, from far away, Prophet Naba, far away, from far away, from far away, Prophet, from far away. He's the man of wisdom. He's the man who lives by faith, and not by fear. His greatest wealth is the richness of his soul. He's the man who lives by faith and not by fear. He's the double-edged sword. He's the double-edged sword. He's the key to unlock the treachery. Follow truth and you shall find him. He's the definition of humanity. He's the beginning